Good morning, Algebra 2. So we are going to go ahead and continue solving rational equations. Yesterday, or 2 days ago for you guys, we ended up solving rational equations that only had a single fraction on either side. And the way we solved them was by just cross multiplying. But we can also have rational equations that do not just have a single fraction on either side, but have multiple fractions. Okay? In this situation, what we're going to do is we're going to use our least common denominator, okay, in order to simplify these guys down and make it an equation that's a lot easier to solve. So the least common denominator is just the smallest denominator that we can make all of our denominators meet at. So let's take a look at number 7 and see what I'm talking about here. So number 7 is 4 over 3 minus 7 over n equals 1 over 6. So when I'm talking about the least common denominator, right, I'm talking about 3, n, and 6, and what term or expression I could get all of them to meet at. Okay, in this case, I know that 3 goes into 6, right? And we also have an n involved, so I think we could get all of these guys to meet at 6n. So our LCD is 6n. That's the least common denominator that we can get all of those guys to meet at. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply every numerator in my expression by that least common denominator, the 6n. So I'm going to get over here, I'm going to have 24n over 3. So I just multiplied 6n to the 4. Then I'm going to have 42n over n. I multiplied the 6n to the 7 equals 6n over 6. Okay? And what this actually gives us the ability to do is simplify it down quite a bit. Look, 24n over 3, that's just 8n, right? 42n over n is just 42. The n's cancel. 6n over 6 is just n. Okay? And now we have an equation that's a lot easier to solve. So that's how that LCD helps us. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to subtract 8n on either side and get negative 42 equals negative 7n. And I'm going to go ahead and divide by negative 7, and I get 6 as my answer there. Okay, so go ahead and try number 8 on your own. So pause your video if you haven't already. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and unpause it, and then you can see your work. Okay, so in this case, remember there's more than one fraction on one of the sides, so we can't cross multiply. We're going to have to figure out the LCD. My denominators are k, 2, and k. I could get them to meet at 2k pretty easily. So I'm going to multiply my entire equation by 2k. And remember, I'm just multiplying to the numerator. So when I rewrite, it's going to look like this. I'm going to have 6k over k minus 2k over 2 equals 24k over k. So I multiplied 2k to the 3, the 1, and the 12. Okay? And then I can simplify it down. 6k over k, the k's are going to cancel. 2k over 2, the 2's will cancel. 24k over k, the k's will cancel. And then all I have to do to solve is pretty basic equation here. So I'm going to have negative k equals 18 divided by negative 1. And it looks like I get k equals negative 18. Okay, so sometimes it's actually going to be easier for us to deal with these guys if we have some factored forms happening. So for example, in number 9, I have p over p minus 2 plus 2 equals 8 over p squared minus 4. So you'll notice p squared minus 4, that can actually be factored because the difference of squares of p plus 2, times p minus 2. Another thing I did is I put the 2 over 1 to make it a fraction, just because it makes it a little bit easier to keep track of everything. Right? So if you check out our denominators, we have a denominator of 1, which is really easy to work with. We have a denominator of p squared minus 4, which we broke down to that right there. and we also have a denominator of p minus 2. So we actually have the p minus 2 in both these guys. The only thing that this one is missing that this one has is the p plus 2. So our least common denominator here is going to be p plus 2 times p minus 2. So that's what we're going to have to multiply to everything here, right? So the nice part about this is because we know that we can cancel things, right? When we multiply this p plus 2, p minus 2 to the p over p minus 2, you'll notice that we're going to end up having p minus 2 over p minus 2, right? Those guys are going to cancel. So that first term is actually going to just be p times p plus 2. And then we're going to multiply this guy to the 2, right? So I'm going to have 2 times p plus 2, p minus 2. Nothing's going to cancel there. And then over here, when I multiply the p plus 2, p minus 2 to that 8, we actually know that the p plus 2 is going to cancel, right? Because we can factor this guy down. And the p minus 2 is also going to cancel, and we're just going to have 8 there. So this is what our situation looks like right now. So we got to do some simplifying here. I'm going to distribute the p to each of these guys. I'm also going to go ahead and multiply p plus 2 times p minus 2. That's going to be p squared minus 4 when I FOIL that out. Right? If you kind of use this information up here, that should have been easy. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to distribute this 2 to each of these guys. So that's going to be plus 2p squared minus 8 equals 8. And then I'm going to combine like terms. That was those two guys. And I'm also going to get it equal to 0. Okay, so what we did there, we used our LCD to simplify things down, and then we realized we had a quadratic, so I set it equal to 0. And then after that, I can go ahead and factor this guy down. Okay, so remember, these ones work a little bit different. You got to use one of your factoring techniques like grouping, or you can use the slip, slide, and divide. I like to just kind of do in my head a little bit here, so we're going to have 3p plus 8 and p minus 2. Right? And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to solve each of these guys. Right? And in this case, I get 3p plus 8 equals 0. I subtract 8 and divide by 3 and get negative 8 over 3. The other one is p minus 2 equals 0. Add 2, I get p equals 2. Okay, the thing we got to keep an eye out on, though, is that if we check out this p equals 2, if we plug this back in, what you'll notice is that we actually end up having division by 0, right? If we plug a 2 in here, I get 2 minus 2, and my denominator is 0. So that 2 actually doesn't work. That's what we call an extraneous solution. So my only answer would be the negative 8 over 3. Okay, so let's try number 10, and then we'll have you guys practice a little bit here. So for number 10, we're doing a similar deal as what we just did. We have more than one fraction on this left-hand side, so we can't just do cross multiplying. Instead, we have to figure out what the LCD is going to be. And remember, it's a bit easier to do that by factoring. So I'm going to factor out a 3 from this guy right here. And then I'm going to figure out what the LCD is. It looks like W minus 1 for both these guys, so that's nice. And then we have a 3 and a 9. Right? So we know W minus 1 is going to be part of it. And then in terms of the number out in front, 3 and 9, 3 does go into 9, 9 doesn't go into 3, so we got to use the 9. So our LCD would be 9 times W minus 1. So that's what we're going to go ahead and multiply to all these guys right here. All right. So when we do that, we're going to have a situation that happens somewhat like this. I'm actually going to go ahead and rewrite it down here, just because we have that factored form for this guy. It might make it a little easier. So make sure you're paying attention here. I'm going to multiply this 9 times w minus 1 to this expression, and what you'll notice is the w minus 1s are going to cancel, and then 9 over 3 is just going to give us 3. So really, that's just going to be 13 times 3. Then I'm going to do the same to this guy right here. 9 times w minus 1. I'm going to multiply to the 1, and you'll notice the w minus 1s cancel, and the only thing left is just going to be 9. And then when I do the same thing over here, I'm going to have 9 times w minus 1 multiplied to the top here. The 9s will cancel, the w minus 1 will not, so that will remain there. So 13 times 3 gives us 39. And I'm also going to go ahead and distribute this guy. So that's 30 equals w squared minus w. So it looks like we have a quadratic. So I'm going to go ahead and set it equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve it out. So once I set it equal to 0, I factored it, and I thought, what multiplies to negative 30 and combines to negative 1? That's negative 6 and 5. And then I'm going to solve each of these guys. So one answer is 6. The other answer is negative 5. And remember, do a quick check. Make sure that you don't have any extraneous solutions like we had number 9. It looks like we're good. So w equals 6 and negative 5 for that guy right there. Okay, so let's take a look at number 11. This will be our last one before you guys practice on your own. So you notice we have more than one expression on the right-hand side, so we got to figure out an LCD and multiply everything by it. Looks like we can't factor any of our denominators. So it looks like our denominators are x plus 3, 1, right, and x plus 3. So our least common denominator is going to be x plus 3. So I'm going to multiply everything by x plus 3. And check out what happens. When I multiply the x plus 3 here, aren't they just going to cancel? The x plus 3 over x plus 3. So I'm just going to be left with x plus 6 equals, I got to multiply the x plus 3 to the 2. And then for this minus 5x plus 12, the x plus 3 is going to cancel when I multiply. So I'm just going to have minus, make sure you put this in parentheses, 5x plus 12. All right. And then as we continue on, looks like a lot easier. It's just a few things we got to do. So first, I distributed this 2 to get 2 times x plus 3 to 2x plus 6. And then I distributed this negative to get minus 5x and minus 12. I'm going to go ahead and combine some like terms. 2x and negative 5x is negative 3x. 6 and negative 12 is negative 6. I'm going to add 3x to both sides. Subtract 6. Divide by 4. It looks like I got x equals negative 3. But remember, do a quick check. If I plug negative 3 in, looks like I get a denominator of 0. So this guy does not work, and it looks like we got no solution. Right? So, sorry about that. So what you're going to be doing to practice this, I want you guys to go ahead and do numbers 5 through 9 we'll shoot for. So numbers 5 through 9 on homework 9. Okay, hope you guys have a great day.